All right. Happy, I was gonna say Tuesday. I don't know why Tuesday. I'm actually recording this on a Saturday because I will be going on vacation the following week. So I wanted to record, a podcast episode, a live video, for you guys. That way, have the content rolling out for you guys, and you guys can continue to get helpful videos and everything, even with me being on vacation. But hope you guys are having a great day, whatever day it is that you're listening to this. And hopefully you had a great new year, because I believe when this will be launched and put out there, at least in podcast form, this will be after the new year. So hope you guys had a great New Year's Eve, New Year's, Christmas Day. It was a really fun time for Christmas, for us, seeing Aiden just come downstairs and get so excited about all the presents, the gifts that are down there. Just being with family and just slowing down. Like, one thing that I've really tried to practice so much this year is learning to just be in the present moment a little bit more. I think, like, with having goals continuously within fitness, and then also having goals continuously within business and having your own business, being an entrepreneur, it just, like, you fall into this mindset and this mentality of just never being satisfied at all, and just always kind of looking for the next thing of how to keep progressing in those areas. And then even if it's not about progress, especially when it comes with business, right? Like, there's this kind of lack of security you feel within having your own business, where obviously if you have like a 9 to 5 job, you could always get laid off. Things could happen. Your position could change. Your company could get rid of your position. So even with a 9 to 5, like, it's not a guarantee and isn't as secure as what a lot of people think. But there's a different level of like insecurity that you feel with your own business. If you're an entrepreneur, you probably know this, where you just are always kind of like thinking ahead. Okay, the next few months, like, what do things look like? And all this stuff. So I've been really trying to practice this year, slowing down with my mind and just like realizing, things are going to be okay. I Thrive Nutrition and Fitness has been so successful over the past almost 5 years since I went full time in it. And obviously I've been coaching since like 2017, almost going on like 9 years now, and things are going well. So, it was really nice to just kind of slow down in the holidays, because it kind of forces me to slow down, because I decide I'm going to take the day off of work, not going to check client messages and all this kind of stuff. So it just forces me to have that, like, I don't know, being more present in the moment, like, I'm trying to this year. But wanted to come on here and talk to you guys about a thought I was literally having today on my drive to the grocery store. We had to pick up some things before vacation. And the thought I was having was just like, one of the biggest struggles, or the biggest reasons why people struggle with their weight loss goals, and something that you want to make sure that you have in the right place to be successful in 2026 going into this new year. Because a lot of you guys probably are setting new fitness goals, new New Year's resolutions, weight loss goals, whatever it is, health goals. And you want to make sure that you have this in check and in the right spot. Sorry, my throat's getting really dry before the year starts, and as the year goes on, or else you're not going to be successful. Let me take a drink. And I just splashed water in my eye. So there's that. But the thought I was having, and it's really simple. And, if you know me, um, especially if you're a client of ours, you know that I'm not the type to, like, I don't know. There's some coaches who are all just about, oh, discipline, 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 motivation, 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 inspiration. And they're all about just like getting you all hyped up in this rah rah mentality. And that's how you achieve results. Like, you just have to work harder. And I think that mentality is good in some cases. And in a lot of cases, it isn't really that helpful, because you have to be doing the right things in order for that hard work to actually do anything positive. Because if you're doing the wrong things, if you're cutting out all carbs when you don't have to, if you're extremely starving yourself or restricting yourself when you don't have to, if you're working out 6 days a week when you don't have to, doing that harder actually isn't going to help. Like, it's just going to run you into the ground even more. So this mentality of like, just work harder, just do more, this and that, it's helpful for sure. But also, if you're doing the wrong things or doing things that are too extreme to begin with, then it can be a bad thing. But the thought I was having on this drive of like, the one thing that is so underrated that you've probably heard before, but you probably don't think about as often as you should, is in order to really be successful with weight loss and fat loss, you just really have to have your priorities in the right spot. And I know you probably hear me say this and you're like, Well, yes, obviously, like I have to make weight loss and fitness a priority. But let me just give a real world example of how powerful it can be when you really like make your weight loss goal, whatever it is, one of the most important things of your life. Does it have to be the very top number one most important thing? Probably not, because right, you have maybe a family, you have kids, you have a spouse, and those things will take precedent. Like going to the gym when your kid is, let's say, knock on wood, God forbid, in the hospital or something is, you probably need to get your priorities in the right spot if you're going to the gym while your kid's in the hospital or your husband, spouse, wife, whoever partner is in the hospital. So there are such situations where like those things take precedent. But like there's so many times where I think a lot of you, and this goes out to, some of our clients too, you put other things as bigger priorities compared to your weight loss and your fitness. And you're really losing sight on how powerful it can be when you make fitness and weight loss maybe like one of the top three things in your life where like number one is maybe your kids or your spouse, number two is maybe your flip-flop, or maybe number one is just entirely like your family, right, your immediate family, and then number two, the most important thing might be just like financial health, like your job, career, of just making sure you're making enough to put food on the table, because you can't just quit your job necessarily and go all in on your fitness and weight loss goals. But after those two things, let's say family, financial well-being, like your fitness and health well-being should probably be number three, should be one of the top three things important to you, especially if you have a lot of weight to lose where your health is going to be significantly impacted by this, or you always feel miserable getting dressed in the morning or getting dressed before going out. And I'll take you back to how this concept and this thought, like why it even popped in my head today, and how powerful it has been for me over the past 2 months. And this is also, and this is a really interesting analogy too for me, because this is me shifting my priorities within fitness. Like they're still fitness related, and I'll explain what this means. So, and I'll go back and kind of tell a story because the story makes sense and the context makes sense. So back in May, I went to the doctor to just have a regular checkup. Like I haven't been to the doctor other than this past May in, I don't know, probably over a decade. Like I just never set up a primary care physician with like where I'm living now and everything, since I've moved. Always been really active, obviously mindful about my nutrition, being a dietitian and a coach and everything. So I'm like, oh, I'm healthy. And, I had taken my like blood pressure here and there in the past, and it usually was always good. So I was like, I'm healthy. Like there's no reason for me to go to the doctor unless I get sick. And I've never really gotten sick over the past 10 years where it was anything more than just like a day or two and then I'm fine. So I hadn't gone, but this past May I went to the doctors and routine checkup, got blood work done. Blood work was all good, but they did find that my blood pressure was high. And taking my blood pressure, especially at the doctor's office, usually makes me nervous. So I kind of chalked it up to that. And my wife, she always has great blood pressure at home. But when she's at the doctor's, which is funny because she's a doctor, she's an OBGYN, but when she's at the doctor's and somebody else is taking her blood pressure, it usually runs high just because she just gets anxiety as they're taking it. So I kind of chalked it up back in May of like, I'm really active, working out 5 days a week, watching my nutrition, tracking my calories, food, and all that stuff. Like, sure, I have a little bit of body fat on me, but I'm relatively like muscular. So, that's a health benefit there. So I'm like, hey, it's probably just, the white coat syndrome, what they call it, of just me having high blood pressure at the doctors, as they're taking it. So I kind of left it at that. But I was a little bit more aware of like just my blood pressure maybe being high. So over the past, multiple months, I would take my blood pressure here and there, sometimes in the evening, sometimes in the morning. And it was consistently running high, and I was always kind of like, maybe, I was just stressed because it was at the end of the day. Aiden was getting cranky, all this stuff, and blood pressure rising, trying to get him to calm down and control my own emotions and all that. With a toddler, and so I was like, it's probably that, but it would just consistently was high over multiple months. So then I got to a point back in this past October, so about 4 to 5 months after that May appointment. I was like, okay, blood pressure is still high. And even when I like take it in the middle of the day, when I feel really relaxed, or I should be relaxed, it's still high. And like with that, I look back at my family history, and my mom and dad, if you've, listened to the podcast or, paid attention to my page for a while, you probably know that my mom and dad have both passed away, and they both have dealt with a ton of health issues before they passed: heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes. My dad had kidney disease, high cholesterol. My dad had multiple heart attacks, multiple stents put in, a lot of health issues due to being inactive and not taking care of their bodies, being at a higher body weight than what their body can sustain, all these things. And, a lot of those issues likely contributed to how they passed and how early they passed within their life. And those issues that they struggled with are a big reason why I even decided to become a dietitian, because I wanted to make a better life for myself, learn how to keep myself healthy, and then to be able to help other people too. So they don't deal with those issues my parents did, and so on. But with that, with my health history or my family history, I'm like, okay, well, both of my parents had high blood pressure. So, like, it's worth going to the doctors again to get it checked and see what they think about, hey, like, my blood pressure is running high at home. It's high every time I come to the doctors. Like, is this legit that my blood pressure could really be high, and where do we go from here? So had this appointment mid-October and sat down with her, and she suggested me going on a very low dose of blood pressure medication, just basically the smallest dose with the least potent form of blood pressure medication, to see what it does, to see if it can get it down a little bit, just because of my family history, like me being in my early 30s, having high blood pressure. Like, that's not good, especially given that my dad, he had his first heart attack in his 30s. I believe he was like 38 when he had his first heart attacks, which is just 6 years away from where I'm going to be. So I'm like, okay, I do not want to have a heart attack in my 30s, and I don't want anything to unsuspectedly happen, especially when I like feel like I'm doing everything I should be doing. So we had this conversation, and she did prescribe the like smallest dose of like the least potent blood pressure medication possible for me, and I did start taking it. And with that, it was a big wake up call of, okay, like, I need to prioritize not only being strong and, my relative body composition or body weight. Like, I need to really make sure I'm checking off more boxes to make sure my blood pressure does not stay high. And I know some people are kind of weird about medication and like are like, I absolutely do not want to take it. And I'm not really in that boat. I'm okay with taking a small dose of blood pressure medication if that's what keeps me healthy, especially if it's the smallest dose, if I'm not having any side effects from it. Like, I'm okay with that. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, even with taking this small, low dose of blood pressure medication, I want to make sure I'm still doing everything I can. Like, I'm not going to just take the medication and then, um, you know, stay at a high body weight, not do any potential cardio that's going to help. I'm not going to like just be like, oh, well, the medication will fix everything. Like, I want to make sure with my habits and behaviors, I'm doing everything I can possible. And at the time, I was around 196 pounds, which, given my body composition, isn't a super high body fat level, but I did have some body fat to lose. And BMI standards and the BMI scale is so wishy-washy. It's not an end all be all. So when you're listening to this, don't think, oh, you have a quote unquote overweight BMI, so that means you're unhealthy, or you have an obese BMI, so that automatically calculates or means you're unhealthy. That is not the case by any means. But my blood pressure was high. My BMI was, it was either like just above the obese range or just under, but like relatively high-ish. So I'm like, okay, me being at a lower body weight would probably help my blood pressure. It would probably help things to be lower, because I am at that higher end of that scale, given my family history, given that my blood pressure is high right now. So that was a big wake up call. And I like thought about my kids. I thought about Aiden. I thought about, our new baby girl, Isla. I thought about my wife. And I'm like, I need to just make sure I'm doing everything I can to be as healthy as possible. And at the time, I was doing 5 days a week of powerlifting, wasn't really doing any cardio at all. And, like I said, I was around 196-ish pounds. Like I said, it wasn't that I was a super high body fat level, but I had some body fat I could lose and still stay healthy. Like, if I lost more body fat, it's not like I was going to be starving myself and be unhealthily lean, if that makes sense. So over the past 2 months, like, I've just making sure that I am doing some cardio for my blood pressure and making sure that I got to a healthier body weight. I made those the two big priorities within my fitness. And I think I mentioned this, the 5 days a week of lifting I was doing mid-October when she started me on this low dose of medication, I was doing 5 days a week of like powerlifting training. That was my big priority. And really within like less than a week, within just like a couple of days, I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop powerlifting, not because powerlifting is causing my blood pressure to be high, but the time it takes to powerlift Like the sessions are like 2 to 3 hours long just to go that heavy that I need to go and everything. That time, I could use some of that time to do some extra cardio, to do shorter, more like quote unquote, like resistance training, bodybuilding style workouts geared toward just like building and keeping a healthy amount of muscle and building, a healthy amount of strength. And then that time that I get back from not having those long powerlifting sessions, I can do a couple of cardio sessions, at least maybe one, maybe two a week, or go on an extra walk to just move more. So it was basically about me getting my time back to devote to more cardio based stuff and just general movement stuff to help with my blood pressure there. And then another thing was shifting from the powerlifting workouts to more kind of traditional, like I said, just general muscle and strength building, was that in my mind, if I saw my strength go down from me actively trying to lose weight, it wasn't going to get into my head as much. With powerlifting, if you are losing weight, like your body weight is going down because you're losing body fat, it is very hard to keep your strength and especially very hard to build strength. Like your actual mass, your body weight plays a big role in how much you can lift in a squat, a bench, and a deadlift. Like your body mass helps to push against the bench as you're pushing the bar up. Your body mass helps you to bounce out of the hole when you're squatting, heavy weight, which is why they have weight classes in powerlifting, right? The heaviest powerlifters tend to be the strongest ones because they have more mass. So when you're losing body weight and losing body fat, it's really hard to keep all that strength. And mentally, that was always so hard for me when I would try to lose weight and lose fat. Now I would do it and I would have successful fat loss phases for sure in the past, but it was always like a really a mental battle of seeing like my squat numbers go down or my bench numbers go down. So by shifting to more of a general muscle and strength building style workout, I stopped squatting as much. Like I would do like leg press and other variations. I stopped barbell benching as much and would do other variations. And mentally, it didn't mess with my head as much. So I kind of completely revamped my workout schedule and the style of workouts I was doing to go all in on like maintaining a healthy body composition and a body composition that I feel good in, like how my arms look, this and that, and feeling good in my clothes, but also that prioritized my general health, especially my blood pressure more. And fast forward, and I also not only just changed my training, I adjusted my nutrition to go into a fat loss phase, right? So if we're building muscle or in a maintenance phase, and those are our big priorities, gaining strength. Like we want to be eating at our maintenance calories, maybe just a tiny tad higher in some cases. But when you go into a fat loss phase, like, you have to adjust your nutrition there to make some changes to get that fat loss to happen. So I made some changes there. But basically for the last 2.5 months, getting my body weight down to a healthier body weight for my height, my frame, and improving my blood pressure have been the two biggest priorities when it comes to like fitness for me. So I shifted my priority from building as much strength as possible in the powerlifting lifts to shifting my priority to, if those lifts kind of go down a little bit and I don't gain as much strength because I'm focusing on fat loss and getting my body weight down that's healthier for my frame, that's okay. So I shifted those priorities. And my priorities, like I said, went from or stayed, which they kind of are in this order at all times: family, business, fitness. That's the third. That's the third priority over, everything else. And then within that third priority of fitness, I prioritized those two things, getting my body to a healthy body weight and helping my blood pressure go down. I prioritize those over powerlifting. And fast forward now, 2.5 months later, and I'm down roughly 15, 16-ish pounds, give or take on the day, which is like a pretty significant amount of fat loss for less than 3 months, especially for like my starting point, right? It's not like I was starting at 300 pounds and lost 15 pounds in 2.5 months. Like lost 15 pounds in 2.5 months starting at, 196. So lost 15, 16 pounds. And my last appointment I had with the doctor, she kind of said like, you probably could get off the blood pressure medication now. So kind of deciding on if I do want to get off of it. Like I said, I'm on the smallest tiny dose. It might not even really be doing anything, the small dose that I'm on right now, especially after losing this weight. But got my body weight down 15, 16 pounds and improved my blood pressure. And I did that because I truly made it the most important thing within like my fitness journey. And, it became the third most important thing in my life above just these short-term choices that we make to feel comfortable in the moment. Like every time I wanted to just kind of lay on the couch and not get my steps in or not do my cardio or not do my workout, I thought, no, like getting healthy for myself and for my kids and for my family, that's a bigger priority than me laying on the couch and scrolling on TikTok longer. Or every time I wanted to not plan my food ahead of time or log my food ahead of time to make sure, I'm going to hit my nutrition targets for the end of the day, I said, no, getting my blood pressure down and getting to a healthier body weight is a bigger priority than the comfort of the short term temporary comfort of me just wasting that time doing something else or whatever it is. Or maybe I'm in the moment at a restaurant, appetizers are coming out, and I'm feeling a little hungry because I'm in a fat loss phase, which is normal. And I look at those appetizers, and do I want to eat those so bad to give me that like short-term satisfaction and short-term comfort and enjoyment of that tasty food? Yes. But I have a meal coming in 10, 15 minutes, and that meal is going to satisfy me, and that meal is going to fit within my nutrition targets that I planned out throughout the day earlier. And if I eat those extra appetizers, that's going to put me above my fat loss range of calories. And then I'm not going to lose body fat on this day and will one day make or break my results. But one day stacked up on top of each other over and over and over of being off, that will impact my results. So making those decisions in the moment to trade the short-term discomfort or short-term comfort for long-term comfort once I get my body weight down and get my health in a better spot, because that is such a high priority for me. Like, that's the mentality I had throughout these past 2.5 months. And there were days where I took maintenance days, like planned, structured maintenance days where I'm like, okay, I'm going to eat more calories on this day because it's Thanksgiving. I'm going to eat more calories on this day because my family's coming in from town and we want to plan like a special meal or this and that. Like, there were absolutely days in there. So don't think I was like just drill sergeant, locked in, locking myself in the room in my house for 2.5 months and not eating anything that wasn't on a quote unquote like really strict meal plan. No, like there was flexibility in there for sure. I planned ahead. I structured my maintenance days around those celebration days. Those days that were not celebration days, I stuck with my fat loss range of nutrition, of calories, protein, all of that to make sure I was checking off those boxes those days. And, the results spoke for themselves. And it's probably one of the most successful fat loss phases, if not the most successful fat loss phase I've ever had over the past 2.5 months. Like, I don't know if I've ever lost 15 pounds in that time frame with just like the results being so like consistent, like clockwork. It wasn't like I ever really had a period where I felt like, oh, things are stalling or I'm not seeing the results I wanted, because I was so on point on those days that I didn't plan ahead to be, maintenance and celebratory days. And I prioritized, all of those things over the short-term comfort that a lot of times, we prioritize over it. So when it comes to going into 2026, realize like your plan should have flexibility that's built in. Your plan should have higher calorie days, maintenance days that are built in. Your plan should have days where you're not tracking your food or meals where you're not tracking your food that are built in. But when there are days where you're in your normal routine and maybe your normal routine is busy, but it's normal for you, and we have the ability to plan ahead and check off those boxes at least 5 to 6 days of the week of being in our fat loss range of calories. Like, you have to prioritize that and prioritize that as much as the top 3 things in your life if you want to be successful, because it matters. Like, you being healthy, you losing this weight, you keeping it off long term should be such a big priority, because if you don't have your health, then what do you have? Like, if your blood pressure is high and your blood sugar is high and you have a heart attack and you're in the hospital, the only thing you're thinking about, or should be thinking about, I hope, is how can I get healthy again? Especially if you have family depending on you. Like, could you imagine if I just, I don't know, had the mentality of like, who cares? Like, it's just high blood pressure, whatever. If I have a heart attack, it happens, it happens. When I have a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old daughter and a wife who's depending on me, like, could you imagine if I had a heart attack and I died and they didn't have a dad for the rest of their life? And like, then Brittany, my wife, didn't have a husband and had to raise them, herself with obviously the help of her family. I'm sure they would help. But like, could you imagine if I did that? And then even financially, right? Now she has to support herself and support, the kids by herself there too. Like, how selfish of me would that be to not make it such a big priority when it could significantly impact all of their lives too in a negative way? And then also my life. Like, I want to be there for my son when he goes to kindergarten. I want to be there for my son when he goes to high school, when he graduates high school, when he goes to college, when he graduates college, when he gets married, when he has kids potentially. Like, I want to be there for all of those things. I want to be a grandparent. I want to be a grandfather and have grandkids down the road and be there for them for as many of those things as I can be. And especially for my daughter, like, I can tell you how many times I've like watched and played like father daughter dances and father daughter dance songs, even just over the past 4 months, just like imagining that moment and not wanting that moment to necessarily come sooner, but also like realizing that's going to be a really cool moment. And I just really hope I'm around for that. And I'm going to do everything that I can to make that happen. And there were other times where I've done fat loss phases where in a 2.5 month period, maybe I lost like, let's say 6 pounds, which isn't bad by any means, 6 pounds of straight body fat in 2.5 months. Like that's great. That's great progress, right? Any progress is better than no progress. But during those fat loss phases, didn't make it as much of a priority as I did this time. Like I chose some of those extra snacks, extra cookies, extra appetizers, just for that short term comfort and satisfaction of eating those in the moment. I chose that over progress sometimes. I chose eating more because I saw my strength and my powerlifting numbers dip a little bit. I chose that over my progress in my fat loss phase in those moments. I chose sitting on the couch, scrolling through TikTok a little bit more often in those fat loss phases versus getting up and getting my walks in or my steps in or going outside for a walk to get more movement in. I chose those things over those because fat loss wasn't as big of a priority to me at that point. Straight and simple. Like it was a priority for sure, but it wasn't as much of a priority as those other variables. But because my health was on the line and my blood pressure was on the line and me being here for my kids, family, all that was on the line this time, like it just simply was a bigger priority to me. So I like acted like it. I chose actions and behaviors that reflected that. And so many of you say you want to lose weight, but your actions and behaviors reflect that, hey, this is maybe number 10 on your priority list. Like you have family, you have your job, you have friends' responsibilities, you have other things, you have your TV shows, you have your comfort scrolling on your phone, you have this, all those things that a lot of times come before your actual fitness and fat loss and weight loss goals. And if that's like number 10 on your list, you're going to see really inconsistent progress and maybe no progress at all, depending on how things go. But if you make your fitness and your fat loss, if you make your progress in that realm, your third priority of your list, most of the time, and this doesn't even have to be all the time, but these are these periods where you make it third on your list at the lowest for a few months, you can see a lot of progress in 3 months then. And then for the next 2 months, maybe it becomes maybe 5 or 6 on your priority list, but it's still there hovering in the top five. And then you kind of maintain for a couple of months. And then you have another few months where you dial that up to be number 3 on the priority list again. And you crush some progress over the next 3 months. You can oscillate this. So it doesn't have to be always number 3. It should be probably pretty close to number 3, like I said, at all times, because like if you don't have your health, what do you actually have? But it can oscillate, I feel like, between that 3 to 5 mark, depending on, what phase you're in. Maintenance phases, it can be around that 4 to 5, maybe 6. 6 is kind of a stretch, but when you're in that like fat loss realm of, okay, I'm going into a fat loss phase over the next 2 months, I really want to lose 8 to 10 pounds. Like, that needs to be number 3 at the lowest. And if you are finding too many days where there are more than 2 things above that list, then maybe that's why, your progress is inconsistent. Now, all of this is said with the understanding that you have a good plan and you know how to lose weight and know how to execute. So like for all of our clients, you have your roadmaps every single week. You know exactly what to do. What your targets are, all of that. So clients, you know what to do. And this really should be speaking to you too. Other people listening to this, non-clients, your plans just might not be good. Like you might not have built-in flexibility. You might not be aiming for the right calorie number. If you're even tracking calories, you might be way off on your protein, eating too much. I know a lot of people do eat too much, eating too little maybe. You might be doing the wrong type of workout. So for you, yes, that priority list still applies, but also you got to make sure that you're actually doing a science-based back plan that is flexible, but also structured, that is smart and strategic, which a lot of you trying to do it on your own probably lack, just to be honest. And there's no shame in that, but it's just like this isn't your specialty or expertise. But if you have the right plan in front of you and you're consistently not executing on it, like I can give you all the hacks in the world of, okay, park further away when you go to the store. Get a walking pad to walk on while you're scrolling your phone or watch Netflix. Get a walking pad to walk on while you're working, maybe. Do this, do that. But if this still, even with all those tactics, those strategies, tricks, whatever it is, if this isn't number 3 on your list most of the time at the lowest, then like your progress is going to be inconsistent. So hopefully this was eye-opening and helpful. Maybe a good rah-rah type podcast to get you like motivated, inspired. Like I said, I'm not a big drill sergeant type of guy that's just like, hey, you got to work harder. But I do see so many people where it's like, and I have these conversations with clients all the time where, maybe they haven't been executing for multiple weeks in a row and like they're just, consistently low on the steps, consistently off on their nutrition and this and that. And I've given them all of the tips and tricks that you could possibly think of. And it's like, hey, we have the plan in front of us. We know what to do. We know all the tips and tricks. And we just simply need to do it more and embrace that. Like some days it's going to feel uncomfortable and hard and you're going to be tired when you're getting your steps in. You're going to want to have those appetizers and you're going to have to just say no. Like, some of those times it's going to be like that and you just have to execute through with it for those results to stack up and make it one of the highest things on your priority list. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day and I will see you guys in the next one.